Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Sylvia Parker, and I will be your teacher for today. And the scripture lesson is coming from the 14th chapter of Exodus. And the title of the lesson is God Can Be Trusted. God Can Be Trusted. And before we get started, I need 2 volunteers, and I need Mario and Chris to come up here, please. I think we're going to demonstrate trust here. Demonstrate trust. Come on up here. You turn around this way.
Not to catch me if I fall.
I want to see on camera. Okay, now we want to see how much you trust Mario. We'll ask you to put your hands by your side and just fall back. Free fall.
She didn't give me instructions to catch her. She told her to fall back.
Then I trust you.
I'm just going off the toes.
Thank you, Mario.
Stand behind her, right?
Yeah, she said stand behind her.
That was a demonstration of someone trusting someone that person let them down. But she did trust him fully, okay? Amen. Okay. Have you ever been in a situation where you felt trapped with nowhere to go? You look to the right, to the left, behind, and even ahead, and still nowhere to go. The entrapment could be a person, a job, or maybe an addiction. You stand hopeless and helpless, and perhaps maybe you ask yourself that one daunting question: who can I trust to get me out of this entanglement? I can only imagine that as God commanded Moses to deliver the Israelites out of Egypt, the Israelites probably asked the same question: who can we trust to free us from the hands of Pharaoh and his slave masters? Our goal today is to understand the importance of trusting God. The Israelites had no idea how they were going to get out of Egypt. They even doubted Moses, the man of God, who in the end saved them from Pharaoh. I hope that we learn from the Israelites how to trust God in all situations. Do you trust your leader? Anyone? Did you trust your leader? The man of God and the woman of God? Did you trust them?
Yes.
You do?
Yes.
Why do you say you trust them? Chris?
Because I've tried them in situations like this.
First, I need to give you a little background. The 3rd chapter of Exodus, verses 7 and 8. Moses had an encounter with God at the burning bush, and the Lord said to Moses, I have indeed seen the misery of my people in Egypt. I have heard them crying out because of their slave drivers, and I am concerned about their sufferings. Therefore I came down to rescue them from the hands of the Egyptians and bring them up out of that land into a land good and spacious, a land flowing with milk and honey. We are never to forget that God knows all about us and He cares for us. And that's one of the things I want you to go away with tonight. God is everywhere. I don't care what you're going through, what the situation looks like. Trust God and know that He's there. He knows all about it, just like He told Moses in the 3rd chapter. He said, I see the affliction of my people, and I'm going to deliver them. Every time God sent Moses to Pharaoh to flee the Israelites, Pharaoh's heart was hardened. In Exodus chapters 9 through 11, God sent plague upon plague upon plague to the Egyptians, but yet Pharaoh's heart remained hardened. Your enemy is going to be hard. They're going to do whatever they can to keep you down. That's what Pharaoh did. But finally, that 10th plague was like a camera that brought the cameras back, and Pharaoh decided to let the Egyptians go and serve their God. As Moses and the Israelites was leaving Egypt, Pharaoh's heart was once again hardened. He is after God's people. You know, the enemy will tell you, I'm gone, you can go, you can do what you want to do. You got the job, you got the promotion. Now, how many of you know, even once you get that promotion, they're still going to be on you. They will still give you a hard time. But you got to continue to trust God, because if God gives you that job, He's the peace that you need to take care of that person that's on your back. So just trust God in all that you do. The frightened Israelites began to question Moses as to why he led them out of Egypt to die in the desert. Moses encouraged the people not to be afraid, but to stand firm and seek the deliverance of the Lord. He also reminded them in verse 14 that know that you don't have to fight the battle, because He has got it for you. He's got it for you.
Whenever God is acting on our behalf, He confounds the enemy that put a hedge of protection between us and our enemies. In verse 19 and 20, the angel of God put a pillar of cloud behind Israel, blocking them from Pharaoh's view, and a pillar of fire before them to give them light. God is the light of the world. It is only through light that we are able to see, and then we put our faith and trust to work. So we have to remember that God is light. And when we follow behind Him, follow His commandments, then that's when we'll be able to trust Him through the reading of His words. Our faith is built up, and our trust. In verses 15 through 17, to rescue the Israelites, God commanded Moses to raise the staff, and the water of the Red Sea was divided, and they were able to walk through on dry land. You know, sometimes we might feel like we're in a storm, but there's dry land there for us. There's dry land ahead. We just have to trust and believe it. Trust and believe that. However, Pharaoh and his army pursued after the Israelites. In verse 26, God once again asked Moses to stretch out his hands over the sea, and the water receded, and Pharaoh and his army drowned in the sea, and they were never threatened. They never threat to Israel again. It might not be that drastic with the enemy that's on you. It might not be that drastic. But you know what? God He'll take care of him. You might move him to another state. Whatever He has to do, He will get that enemy off your back. Just trust Him. Finally, when the Israelites saw the great power of the Lord displayed against the Egyptians, the people feared the Lord and put their trust in Him and in Moses. How many of you know that sometimes it takes a miracle for you to trust God? Have any of you ever had a miracle that made you trust God? Any of you ever had a miracle that made you trust God? And the thing is, what we have to realize, trust is a person on whom or a thing on which one relies on. That's what trust is. God is my trust. Who's your trust? God. God. He's the only one, the one and only. The one and only. And just remember, just as Moses, through the guidance of God, delivered the Israelites safely through the Red Sea, Jesus Christ